in chronological order of when they were written. Goodbye, Berlin. Remember when we got lost in Berlin? We wandered along a tiny path next to tiny vacation sheds, overgrown shrubs, old men cleaning out their barbecues, and the dark clouds were coming in. Remember we spotted a beach volleyball court and convinced each other that it meant civilization. Remember the fence and how one of us wanted to climb over into the sand and nets and the others did not. Remember overgrown wild grass and the S1 above us, and the lonely wind started whipping around, and all the construction tape flew in these crazy long arcs, sounding like flags in rough wind, but tighter and angrier and wider. And we had never seen so much tape behaving so strangely, and we were nowhere. Remember one of us filmed it with our phone and it began to rain and we said, oh great. Remember finally getting back to Kreuzberg, going to a random falafel place, the kind that is on every corner, but we ran into someone we knew, a feminist comrade from San Francisco. Remember how it was like we had suddenly entered into a scene of a low-budget film with a limited number of sets, requiring suspended disbelief, all of us disoriented because does this kind of thing really happen? But there it was in front of us, both parties awkward with the mental disturbance. Remember getting a bottle of whiskey and then I drank so much of it, sneaking it into and finishing it at a bar because we, quote, had to get rid of it. And then I ordered a whiskey and Coke at the Polish bar, and the lady with a lot of mascara said, your friend is passed out over there. And you had to help me all the way home. Remember how the both of you took lots and lots of video of me sleeping / passed out? Remember when we talked about playing surrealist games but never did? Remember scandalizing everyone with our dancing at the queer club and then getting our pictures taken and our jackets stolen, and we said it was because they were jealous and we were dancing? Remember screaming along to Rihanna, and when we got out, it was morning, and we rode the train home with the commuters playing pop music from your phone. Remember lightning storms and eating bratwurst with potatoes and pickled cabbage. Remember all of us sleeping in the same bed and talking till morning. Remember waking up to the obscene sound of construction in the apartment above us, endless church bells, and hundreds of children yelling at in some kind of summer camp, and we said they sounded like ghost children, because we couldn't see them and their child sounds echoed into our courtyard. Remember it was Fashion Week and we accidentally stumbled into a fashion event and ate a macaroon that tasted like raspberry jam. Remember walking to a punk show at Kopi and getting caught in a huge rainstorm and then going to the punk show anyway, so we were literally steaming and our feet started to rot or something. Remember the punk show was really good and the band talked mad ironic shit about being thanked for being a female punk band? Remember when I came home bruised and all that, and you tucked me into bed, and then when I woke up, more friends had come over, and we went to the park and talked about Austrian novels, and then ate a plate of fries with ketchup and mayo. Remember walking along the waterways and reading Death in Venice out loud? Remember when I read the tongue-in-cheek manifesto you wrote, and then I wrote a sarcastic counter-manifesto to make fun of it? Remember watching this long Portuguese film and learning about the fear and abuse of the African immigrants living in these slums at the time. And it was not even the fascists that they were afraid of. It all happened during the Loftus coup, storing them up in trees so they had to board up their rooms and hid, wondering what kind of world they would come out to. Remember talking together late at night about a film you were going to work on, and you made us read the treatment out loud, taking turns. Remember talking about Fox and his friends, and then you said it was a condescending film, a caricature of a queer proletarian, naive and easily fooled, and I found my position was defending the art, and I was thinking this was strange, but I thought that the character's moral or intellectual character was not what was at stake as much as the exchange of money between people, and how that always favors the capitalist in the film. Remember dragging a bed into the kitchen? Remember on our way to commie camp, we were waiting around for the others at the German bar in the country, and thinking if there were Nazis around, we would totally be the targets? Remember the camp organizers warned us about the Nazis in that area, but said it would probably be okay because they were disorganized. But travel in groups just in case. Remember there were no Nazis that we saw, but there were people dressed in medieval costumes and playing instruments and handing out leaflets in their outdoor Shakespeare play and suddenly feeling lost in a time warp. Remember the mosquitoes, so many fucking mosquito bites that covered us like victims of a terrible skin disease? Remember there was a budget deficit from all the beers we all drank and didn't pay for, resulting in a lot of jokes about a bunch of anti-capitalists not paying for beer. Remember you were crying one morning in the line for breakfast and I hugged you because of that piece of shit, but also because I would hug you whatever it was. Remember the time you walked into my tent with the light of your cell phone? Remember, fuck English, fuck French, we were just gonna feed the fire with more and more sticks, and that would be our language. Remember when I listened to all you singing your country folk songs, tracing a kind of working class European culture or traditions of resistance in these songs, and I thought of Minjung culture, but I didn't have any songs to sing, and yours were lovely enough for the night. Remember I drank the rest of the rum to save you from you all from sure death, and around dawn it began to rain. Remember, quote, we are walking into an area full of social and political landmines. Remember snorting Adderall and trying to get all of our thoughts translated into French with a Spanish accent so our Tunisian friend could understand us. Remember when I said I would learn French and you said email me about anything except art and to visit you in Tunis, and that made me glad. Remember showing me your journal and you said you kept it because it was hard to remember sometimes, and it was full of images cut out from places because it was hard to write sometimes, and being nervous but excited to hitch back to London. Remember talking with the Oakland commune to a bunch of Germans and realizing we had never really talked about these recent events before, and how suddenly it seemed like we were showing x-rays and charts of our bodies and trying to say, do you understand the contradictions? Contradictions we didn't even understand. Remember talking shit to the guys at the bar and talking shit on the anti-Deutsch. Remember spending hours at the coffee shop to make counterfeit train tickets. Remember going to the opening of this beautiful Swedish film, Shemale Snails, made by your friends, and being so overwhelmed afterwards, and talking about rape in this emptied out corridor, and riding on the back of your bike while I held on tight. Remember doing speed together and you said it was like gliding, and going to this minimal wave show with its fascist aesthetics, and you left me to drink the disgusting tequila sunrise and dance alone. Remember yelling my name from your apartment balcony into the street, the strange apartment with its peeling wallpaper, and ghosts coming out of the toilet, and black blood dreams at night, and you showed me pictures of some words you wrote on your belly. Quote, I'll tell you a secret. My dress is beautiful and I don't want to die. The Clarice Lispector quote you kept repeating. Remember going to the Battle of Chile screening and we laughed when we realized it was only in Spanish and German, and you were upset that we had to leave just as Guzman got into the Q&A. Because he had not showed up at Documenta, and it was too bad because you probably had some good piercing questions. Remember when I told you about the paintings of clouds in the room in the National Gallery in London and how they glow with the changing natural light overhead? And you looked me in the eye, like always, and said, you didn't know that. Like, how could this be with delight and this kind of genuine discovery? Remember talking about being present and saying this with urgency after you took out the stitches from your chest by watching Americans with no health insurance do it on YouTube? Remember putting plastic around your tomato plant, which was hopeless anyway in a cold Berlin summer, but in the end you ended up with a single perfect red tomato. Remember I showed up at your door with my broken glasses and you had no idea what had happened, and I didn't tell you that I picked up the camping gear and we had a long, sleepy conversation. Remember subsequently having a difficult conversation about what had happened, and you recalled you had said that morning about cutting people out of your life, if it was needed. Remember we helped you with a loft construction project in the spare room you were building in the apartment, and you went into a manic state, and I assisted even though we were all so tired but couldn't stop. Remember the saw blade kept popping out and I was scared someone's finger was going to get cut off, so I kept unplugging it. Remember the other time when you suddenly decided the table had to be 2 inches taller, so you cut blocks of wood and fixed them to the legs and had to point it out to everyone who came over after that? Remember all the times you went to the Turkish bakery for breakfast and sat by the sidewalk? Remember when you told me not to go to the Techno Festival at the Baltic Sea because hanging out in Berlin with you was better? Remember my dolphin lighter and your dolphin bracelet? Remember how I made you try different food in your neighborhood and you told me to stop writing so much to someone in Oakland because he doesn't care about you, and it hurt to hear? Remember a lot of talks that were too much for both of us but so helpful to you, recalling our traumatic childhoods and relations to family? Remember hot chocolate and whiskey for breakfast before I split to go to the Thai market where I ate a mountain of spicy green papaya salad? Remember drinking that mix of beer with gin and getting obliterated, and the next morning we said, never again? Remember the French bookstore and trying on fancy sunglasses and getting mobbed by tourists in a squat when you were teaching me a card game? Remember deciding to walk from Mitte to Tempelhof and giving up when we got near the Jewish Museum, but somehow making it to Tempelhof, to the airport that is now a park, and falling into the grass because it was not possible to walk anymore, and people passed us on rollerblades with headlamps, and then going home and eating an entire round of cheese each, melted over potatoes? Remember nostalgic house pop music and dance videos and stealing books and London riots and playing Go and waking me up and throwing a croissant on my bed and changing the time on the computer to read Berlin? Remember seeing a dead swollen rat and beer bottles and dirty swans floating down the waterway? Remember the sun on the glass roofs somewhere on Karl Marx Strasse? Remember eating lentil soup with lemon and exchanging our goodbyes? Remember that summer in Berlin and how we said it was already over, it's getting colder now, and everyone is leaving and it's time to prepare for winter? September 12, 2012. I was thinking today how the paranoia of feminism is familiar, no, overly familiar to me. Since childhood, since immigrating, a shadow doubly cast, that at any moment a betrayal was imminent, the social uncovered to reveal its actual ugly face. Maybe I will tell you first the story of what kind of day I had today. After dragging myself out of the apartment, which glows every day, making it hard to leave, I finally make it to the office at the train station to buy my ticket back west, where my family is living. I watch the women behind the counter help the other English-speaking white tourists, friendly, kind, and even making jokes and so forth. Then I approach the counter and the demeanor changes completely. Hi, I say with some nervousness, and proceed to ask them about my situation, needing to buy this train ticket with an expired temporary discount card, but the other permanent card never came in the mail, I say. This is your problem, they say. Do you speak German? No, I shake my head and they make exasperated noises. Well, you better hope they speak English, and they call the service number and hand the phone to me. The service line is in German. Maybe I should just buy a regular ticket and get a discount later, I ask, handing the phone back, confused, because the reason I came all the way to the office, where I knew they would speak English, is because I needed help and couldn't figure out this problem on my own. Well, you need to make a decision, she snaps, obviously totally annoyed. Okay, I say, I need a ticket for Saturday. When? Whenever it's cheapest. That would be the morning. Again, I stare like I am the stupidest person in the world. I hand over a check of cash for a ticket at 6:40 a.m. She hands me the change, bitte schön, not looking up. I walk outside feeling strangely upset, yet it is such a familiar kind of anger, which I have long learned to ignore or work around. Here it is again, the same kind of helplessness I felt when I was a child, unable to understand what was going on around me, the hostility, and then too young to even understand what my parents were asking me to say to the English-speaking people, but my tongue wrapped around the words better. I've been through this so many times before, so why is my hand shaking as I light my cigarettes? A wind is whipping around me, suddenly chilly. I decide to go grocery shopping for some Korean food. On my way there, like an absurd bad day scene from a film, where the environment shifts obscenely to fit the protagonist's mood, the sky darkens, the rain starts, and finally someone is playing a fucking trumpet. Some sad tune. It makes me feel a little better though, to hear people speaking Korean inside the store. They don't ask me if I'm Korean like they sometimes do. I feel like I have a secret code that lets me move unimpeded. I grab comfort food, ramen, fresh bagged tofu, bok choy. And because somehow this is not enough, I head to Koti, to my favorite shawarma place. On my way there, the cops nearly run me over. I must be so used to sirens that I don't even notice them anymore. The only reason I even make it is because people in front of me in the crosswalk start running, and my demo instinct kicks in, and finally I register the sirens, pigs, and I run like fuck. I dip into the place and sit down, finally feeling a little at ease, but first I do a quick change, taking off my jacket and scarf, keeping my back to the street, still in demo mode, letting salty yogurt calm my stomach. Besides the food being good, the reason I like this place is because the guy that works here has possibly one of the best smiles I've ever encountered, because it is one that you can't help but return, and genuinely, even when your heart is breaking and your body is wrecked. How are things, he asks. Good, and smiles. I reread parts of Century of Clouds while the season skips. There is an American coin on the wall. I stare at it occasionally. I stay long after I devour my shawarma. There's a long line of customers, and I wait to approach. The last time I was here, I had been sexually assaulted and on the verge of passing out. My body was completely sore, my face felt bruised, and I could barely keep my eyes open. What the hell am I doing here by myself, I thought, and how did I even get here? The same guy was working with the same smile. He laughed a little, maybe seeing my hickeys, my dark circles, working glasses, mussed up hair, and said, "You need to rest?" "I'm very tired," I said. "Thanks for the food." He seemed happy then to see me eat, recovering from what he thought had been a fun night at the club. "Have a nice day," he said. "I'll try," I said, and took the U-Bahn home and crawled into bed to pass out, leaving my shawarma leftovers at the kitchen table. Well, here I am again, alone but different. After exchanging cash, we exchanged our smiles again, taking over both our faces. Good night, good night. The intertwining of everything, the way that is all fucked up, but also okay, despite, in spite of. The way I flounder and punch and fall apart and hold together. The scraps of warmth from the cold terrain of the social. I look for those tiniest sparks to hold on to because they are connected to the larger desert we traverse, where every hand can help and every hand can hurt. I don't want to die in the desert, but if I have to, I might as well do it with a lot of fire burning around me, a blaze stirring life up against itself. My heart, which can hold so little, but seems to stretch and stretch anyway. Korea, first impressions. I slide in now, I've flown and landed. Was there a past I had here, or was it a reoccurring dream, come to visit for a while once more? I know what this is. Walking past these shops and these small winding streets and these rows of apartment towers, white against mountains and yet not yet turned autumn colors. But these are also memories of a life not lived. What might have been over here, what might have been familiarity is now strange. The unseen shadows everything. A crowd of careful bricks. The weary men crouched to the ground. A cloud like a faded photo, all underexposed, all soft, in the rush into me. Harmony holds my hand in the entire taxi ride. She tells me, "We live over there, past that mountain." The tunnels are dark, orange, wide. I recognize the smell of the entrance to the house. The dark wood and persimmon tree and lush plants scented with perpetual water. It smells like a dog, but there is no dog. There was a dog from the north with heavy fur, but the summer was too hot, Harabaji says. The dog died last month because it was too hot. What's left are the ghosts of the dog, drying laundry and lily pads on a tiny stone lake, a trough of black water before the large window, a sheath of light floating in the camouflage of leaves. Tomorrow I will go to the agricultural market, warehouses full of rows of shiny packed fruit, boxes of dried fish and herbs and mushrooms, long packages of seaweed. I will watch a boy carve fat from a ruby slab of beef, his movements that of a sculptor, and I will carry home a curve of bananas, taut in their plastic, like a child on my hip. I will wake in the night to the sound of a cockroach flying and walking, and finally the sounds of its extended death from the poison in the room. I will clutch and punch my pillow full of buckwheat husks and sigh out loud, as if my noises might displace the disturbed clicking. I will switch on the light, too afraid still to open my eyes in case there are more than one and they are not dying, and they are huge and shiny ghosts of all the cockroaches that have ever died in this room, just biding their time until I look over, to swarm my neck like a chattering thick rope and strangle me. My childhood fears come back to me, and I will be reminded of how over a year ago, a premonition had come to me, first as a dream and then as a nagging hallucination. A room glittering with fat bugs and crustaceans, slowly crawling over me, and how I had recognized it because it was my daily slow crawl, my own rotting in that town, and how I had to leave. How the lived nightmare was so much worse than that dream because it was shot through with beauty, which kept me locked and decaying like that. But the premonition had exposed it all as ugly. And that's what I listed for beauty was eating at my insides. And I will suddenly be relieved to be in this room and not in that room, to be holed up here with only one dying cockroach, and that I am not the one dying. Yes, devotion. Parade of torches, the dream of totality, where are you? The Korean subject is an inflationary bubble. I am an inflationary bubble too, on the surface of another bubble, but I don't know how to be it proper. The first step is to be alone. In this film, the subject dies because in this film, that is the only way to escape the family. In this film, the subject dies because in this film, that is the only way to escape the circuit of money. In 2008, in an email to a French musician, I wrote, LA is a tiring city. I always think I can feel the largeness of it. He wrote back, I feel so shitty to treat you like my best friend because it's almost true. Okay, excuse this email, just a certain time in a certain place. Yes, devotion. On Valentine's Day of the same year, I met a Persian man in his 50s standing in line at the International Grocery Store, buying a container of dried dates. My debit card didn't work, so he drove me to the nearest ATM. He was fond of discussing wine and his failing marriage. Once he took me to a Mexican restaurant outside of town to eat very bad flautas. Then he drove me into the woods and parked and tried to talk to me about special friendship. But a trait trooper pulled up. I'm so sick of the personal phone. I'm not a person, not any more than a collection of strangers. In 2008, I was often stupid. I believed in seducing what was unknown to me, and that this was a kind of ownership of spaces when the world was collapsible with crisis. Archetypal, bubble in a failed universe that says bam. But 2013 has dreams for a different kind of seduction. Maybe devotion was the right word, coming to me from 2008 and just arriving. I want to be devoted to the moment when the subject dies, hooray. My excited emails to you piling up. I'm not sure how much it exists, but I have so much capacity to be seduced by platonic love. I desire people in multiples, like a room of poets who are not reading poetry, seduced by platonic love. I would like to take drugs and think of sci-fi solutions to gender. I would like to watch 20 movies in a row and feel alienated, but happy to be watching them with someone else. All the birds are arriving to the parade of torches. Tell them we have more work to do before we can get there, but soon. Strange paradise. I write statuses about crying on my Facebook page or about days when I cried. I used to cry all the time, but now it seems like an actual event, not just the soggy texture of days. Sometimes it's because I'm reminded of past traumas unfolding a little bit more, and tears seem like some part of an explanation. But the event of late has been trips to the dentist. The dentist and two assistants put a cloth over my head so they can only see my mouth, and I cannot see their instruments or the white light. The procaine they inject into my gums makes my legs restless, breath rapid, and with repetitive nerve pain and shrill noises, it makes me cry. Partially this is because the pain actually seems worsened by the local anesthetic, and they keep injecting more, making me panic. I had a dream last night that I was being tortured by unseen forces with totally abstracted pain in unending waves, and I just had to tell myself, this is the crest, soon it will recede, and marking new crests as they were topped over and over. Everything was a gold line and a white flash that burned time. I didn't know what was desired of me. Actually, nothing was desired of me. There was no horizon. Only an arbitrary end could stop this. When it came, I found myself wandering a town. The streets and duplexes and promises of warm meals made no sense to me in the context of torture. Gold line and white flash were diffused everywhere. I almost wept on the way to the dentist on the Busan Metro, reading Juliana's book, The Transformation. I wept afterwards reading this book and on my way to the ocean, still a little paralyzed by the adrenaline receding from my body. Sometimes sadness or the sweeping post-pain feeling comes like multiple orgasms. Maybe it contains something erotic, or maybe it is sensationally intense as the opposite force, negative orgasms falling out of my body as luminescent moth bubbles. At the ocean, women were laying out seaweed to dry. I followed feral cats around, who squinted and crouched into their fur and haunches to avoid the wind. My hair flew around, became thick. The cats disappeared under a building. I climbed ladders and sat on giant concrete shapes. Chairs stood on the road, weighed down by big water bottles and rope, stranded. My head seemed to blow up pleasantly with tears, then without, overwhelmed by the competition from the body of salt water in front of me. I fail every day as a person on land, as a city dweller. My eyes only really clear at facing water. I got really cold and then went to a beauty place and ordered soju and laid clams over the fire, watching them boil in their shells. Took in shots. Drunk and warmed up, I climbed a hill or to catch a village bus. It was night now, and the street was littered with white cherry blossom petals. I headed to the new downtown of Busan, Samyang, to immerse myself in the crowds, to feel that melting into collective. Moving around, people are linked at the arms, people are close to each other. Later, when I go home, I will learn that Margaret Thatcher has died. But already before I was filling up with this warm feeling. When moving around crowds, sometimes I felt a lot of dread in malls, at universities. I'm not sure why the spaces in Korea feel so different. They too are driven by commerce. Maybe the friendships just seem more palpable, actually social. Maybe things always look that way when you are outside enough, the friendliness of just enough distance. I think about how soon I can be huddled close to other bodies, like everyone else on the street. How the wind in Busan might be connected to the wind in San Francisco and the wind in Marseille, but that I want to keep the specificity close to, the sweet fermented quality to Busan's wind, which wraps around you tender and mischievous. How it will be harder to weep in public when I go back to the States because I will be more willing to explain, more likely to be made to explain what my intention is with the book, what a wild black sensation that is mourning but is also ecstatic means it all. July 10th, 2013. Listening to sweet songs through my shitty laptop speakers, wondering why I thought my face smelled like salad dressing last night, why I feel embarrassed sometimes and cover my face like when I was a kid and scared my friendships would shatter just like that over a tiny detail. Something about not feeling the real presence of myself. Something about being young and crying because the wall in the room was too blank. And why fighting isolation in the political sense, not the good kind of aloneness, but the disappearance of even the traces of the oppressive apparatus, the miniaturizing of cameras, the geography of segregation, the precarity of this world where everything precious too may disappear with terrible ease. And I want to find a way to say our friendships are precious. Sometimes protecting that means saying goodbye to people who let you down too much. Our shared resistance is precious. Sometimes that means I cover my face as if crying, but shake with laughter. Sometimes that means I grip tight, like I'm afraid, but I just need to transfer this low fidelity sound of my love to you. What it means to fight, to hold on. My eyes close like a prayer, I think about the dotted paths of thinking of you beings that people send from their isolation. I think about solidarity like tree limbs bound and knotted from centuries of hard wind, pulling them together, and hands that look into the dark, hands that are not strong but feel stronger in the presence of those that are looking too. August 3rd, 2013. I knew enough code to code the ocean into a black stone, floating above a Martian desert. I was a tiny fox that stole your cell phone to text, I love you, in the language of the foxes. If they find out about us, they will suspend us in a government jail, like aliens in the movies, then pump us fat with carbon credit vouchers as a legal sorry for the extrajudicial encounter. Later, they'll say it was a bad idea. It was a bad idea to let us in to begin with. When the sun reaches out with plasma arms, we'll reach back, happy for any cosmic welcome signal. The sun only compounds contagions,